everybody, welcome back, and please try to ignore the lawnmower noise outside. I wanted to tell you, I actually started working on this before I turned on the camera, and the reason is after I painted it, there was still the vertical fork in here, and I needed to take it out because this was missing. I did not have one of these. And in order to get that out, these 115s are a little bit different. Let's see if I can flip her up. There is a rod that goes straight through the column here. If you can see that going straight across. I know it does disco lights, so I'll just have to ignore it. But right here, there's a rod going straight across. And that is keeping this in place. And I couldn't take the fork out until I take this, well, loosen this. I can't take this out entirely unless I remove this rod, you know, which is right here going through. And I did not remove that. I did not want to remove that. But I got it back in, and, you know, it involved screws up here and everything. If I would rather not have to deal with that again. And honestly, it took me a whole lot of trial and error and holding my mouth right and all of that kind of stuff. So I just did not want to turn the camera on. But we have stitch length now, and I think we are ready to move forward. I also found a badge in my stash, and I got that put on. So, yeah. These tacks, they are brass escutcheon pins. I don't have the right container over here, but that's what they are. Stamped with a little flower at the tip. I don't think my camera's going to focus on it, but trust me. So right now on the inside, I do have the ends of those pins sticking out. You can see there's one right there, very shiny. So I have a little bit of epoxy on those. Once that epoxy is dry, I can come back in. Let's see if I can just do it with this piece. This is just the end of a hammer. And I should be able to bend it in so that, you know, it's not going to poke you. They are out of the way so that even if you never do get those bent in, everything can still turn as it is. Just be careful if you stick your fingers in there, because there are very sharp things poking out. I could also clip those off, you know. This might work. Cutting them off at a length of about 1/4 inch or so, like so. And so that leaves a shorter end in there, you know. Do what you can. Every machine is shaped different and everything, but I'm going to try to bend those down. But I'm going to wait probably until tomorrow just to make sure that those little drops of epoxy that I have on it are set. So, just because there is not a lot of information out there about the mechanics of a 115, and I previously did a video explaining taking one apart and putting it back together. I'm actually going to be referring to that. But anyway, I wanted to show you, this is the faceplate that Bob polished, and he sent it back to me, and it is beautiful. So nice. I mean, even where it was rusty, it's not anymore, and it's beautiful. So thank you very much, Bob. You did an amazing job. We couldn't do it without you. Okay, one of the first things I'm actually going to do is put the wheel back on. I just think that would be handy. So I'm going to put some oil. Actually, I need to clean up this hole in here. I'm going to put oil on here, but let me clean up inside there really quick, and I'll be right back. It was just a little bit dry in there, so a bit of oil. Okay, so I can push that on. The washer, of course, little prongs sticking out. I'm hoping that it goes this direction. Actually, this will be a lot easier if I tip her up on her nose. Tipping her up, I have gravity working with me. I can go ahead and get this wheel started. I'm hoping. Okay, let me tighten up this little screw here so we can see if I have that washer on right. Let's see here. Okay, so if that's tightened, I want to be able to turn it a quarter turn and then have it stop. And I can. So that means I actually got the washer on right the first time. So I'm going to turn this wheel, and I want to make sure that those shafts I put in are moving, and they are. So that's great. I need to get my wire wheel out down here a little bit. I am going to go ahead and tip her over so I can see her bottom. Let me go get a towel to put under here so that she's nice and protected. And we're going to work on getting this main shaft in with the hook. So looking underneath, I've got my hook and I've got it attached to the shaft. Now, this came in pieces, and when I did this last time on my other 115, I never could get this off. And so, because of that, I'm kind of guessing on the shaft itself, there's only one positioning hole. Okay, so if you can see on the hook, there are 2 screw locations, okay? The screws that I have, one is slightly taller than the other. So I am assuming that the taller screw is going to line up with this divot, okay? There's only one. It would be nice if there was 2, but there's only one. What I'm trying to decide is, do I line this divot up with this hole or this hole? So that's what I'm going to play with, and I think because both screws fit in both holes, I'm just going to pick one, and if it doesn't tie them up right, well then I'll know I have to rotate it to the other one. I think that's just what I'm going to have to guess at. So that's how I have it attached here. Put this out of the way. Now I'm going to slide it through. Again, sorry about the noise. Oh Lord, he turned off the mower. Okay. This is moving a little bit stiffly. I want to make sure that I put oil in these little holes and rotate it. I mean, it's moving, it's just not moving super freely. Okay, I think it's moving better once I actually get the machine going and I can connect it to the wheel. As I turn the wheel and it spins, it'll move even more freely. So, you know, it is what it is at this point. This is going to go at the end of the shaft over here, and this bearing is going to ride up and down in this slot. And last time I did one of these machines, I decided that the placement needs to be so that there's one little slot flat part cut out here, and that has to align down against this screw that's at the bottom. So I'm just going to make sure these are backed out enough. I have to slide this up so it's in position here, and then push the shaft back into the end over here. And I think I do need to unscrew these guys a little bit more. So give me a second to get all of this worked back in, and once it's popped back in here, then I'll go ahead and tighten those screws up. Okay, so I've got it on and it's turning, but it's still kind of stiff. So what I've done is I've pulled my wheel off. I'm going to put my little socket over it and spin it with my drill for a little while. And I'm hoping I have oil all over the place in the little oil holes and everything, and I'm hoping that that's going to loosen it all up. Okay, so I'm just going to hold this up out of the way. And what's going on up here is this kind of thing. So you get the idea. I'm going to run it for a minute and then we'll try and see if it's loosened up. Okay, we are a whole lot better now, moving very freely, and I threw oil in all of the holes in the front cog, everything underneath and all, so I think we are ready to go ahead and proceed. So let me tip her back over. You can see there's oil dripping out. I over oil her at this point because I've cleaned every last bit of oil out of her when I'm stripping her paint off and everything. So her clear coat's nice and strong, so I can always just wipe it off. That is no big deal. Okay, so now I'm going to get this put back in. Now, when I was playing with my whole bag of parts, I was trying to find things that looked like they would make sense. So I'm pretty sure that this is the right screw for this place over here. It should be a place for adjustment. Maybe? Don't know, but I've got a little nut for it. I'm hoping that's the right one. If not, I'll continue looking. And then I have my feed dogs put up on here. So this is what I'm hoping is correct. I'm going to go ahead and put some oil into these little holes here, which is going to oil where that shaft is rocking. Slide this up in here, and where this little depression is, I think I'm going to need to take these feed dogs off before I do this. Hang on a second, let me pull these guys off. So I took my feed dogs off, so I'm just going to slide this. I believe that this little plate here is for being able to raise or lower your feed dogs. That's what I'm thinking that's for. That's what I'm going with, you know. I'm just going to slide that in. This little hinge part goes into this depression that's cut into the machine. And I'm going to go ahead and slide this bolt through here. You know what? I think I need to loosen up this little clamp screw a bit to let it through. Okay, and then I have a nut that's going to go over on this side. Let me see. Too small. Okay. There we go. It is a 3/8 inch nut, so if you're curious, that's what we've got here. Okay. Now I have a couple pivot points that I need to put in on both sides here. Let me take their nuts off first. And these will need to have a final adjustment later. I just want to get them in there so it will kind of hold this shaft in place. Before I get those too tight, I forgot to put oil in those holes. Even though they are clean, you know, I want to add some to where those points are and bring them in more. And so that's just going to hold this kind of in place. I'm going to go ahead and put this other nut on over here just so I don't lose it for right now. And yes, there will be definitely an adjustment this way, going back and forth. That will adjust the feed dogs going right to left on top here. So right now, you know, just as it is, I'm going to fold this so it doesn't knock on here. But if I turn it, that's what everything's looking like. So this is gently going up and down a little bit. Okay, this is spinning really well. So I'm happy with that. Let's move on. Okay, so I'm just going to throw something out there. If there's anyone learning to take apart their machines and everything, I highly recommend that you video yourself, just like I do, and explain exactly what you do as you take things apart. Throw it up on YouTube. You don't need to make it public. You can make it, you know, unlisted just for you. And that's what I did. And I'm watching my old one over here. This is a 115 that I did last year. And I can listen to that and get ideas because, like, this machine has this screw. It goes through here. And when I was done sorting parts on this, I ended up with a random assortment of pieces. And so this being able to watch my video, it's like, oh, I need to use this random washer that I wasn't too sure of exactly where it goes. That goes with a random screw, and I could see the screw that I was using. I believe it's this one. I'll have to double check to screw that in. So anyway, there's that. So highly recommended. But basically, this spring is going to hold this lever in somewhat tension, so it's not going to be flapping everywhere. So let me go find, I know it needs a washer. Let me find the correct screw and get that screwed in. Okay, so now that that is on, that spring is holding this piece against this part of the hook that's actually acting kind of like a bearing. So I'm going to throw some oil on there. Okay, so there we go. I think it's doing what it needs to do. All right, now I have this bracket, and there's like a little fork right here, and it is holding this little nub. I don't know if you can see that in place so that it can't turn, okay? So I'm just going to get this placed in here, little toes around that little nub, and get it lined up so I can get this screw started. And once I get that kind of started in, good. Tighten it up a hair. Let me see if I turn it, if everything still works. And it looks like it does, so that's cool. All right. There's a couple things about this hook that I'm unsure of. One thing is this machine came with a variety of bobbin cases in various states of decay, and one that looks like it's new, but it doesn't look the same as the others. So I'm gonna have to play with it and figure out what is what, or if I need to, use parts for them and create a new one. I don't even know. I will deal with that later. That is a tomorrow problem. Okay. Okay, so I have her sitting in a box now because she has to be up off the floor to be able to turn. And if you can see, the hook is turning. It's looking right, as far as I can tell at this point. I want to put these feed dogs on just so I don't lose them. Knowing me, I'm going to have to take them off again pretty shortly just to get my hook timed up. But I'll tell you what, this is how they go on. There's these two screws here, and I'm just going to unscrew this. They go into these two holes right there, okay? I'm going to put this away for now just because I know I'm going to have to take it off, so why tempt fate? Let me go on to the next step. I wanted to show you, I just went ahead and put her little back plate on, okay? That is the same one that's going to go with her newly polished front plate. Okay. Actually, while I have my plates out, I have decided that I'm going to go ahead, put my feed dogs on, put on my little slide plates, and, make those bottom adjustments. And I wanted to show you, I don't know if I ever have, I keep a little bitty spray bottle handy, which is basically 70% rubbing alcohol with a few drops of dishwashing liquid in it. And it makes a fabulous little cleaner, shiner, degreaser, and I keep it in that little bitty bottle because I use it on small things usually. But it's very handy, so, highly recommended. Let me go ahead and get this screwed back onto this plate here, and so that I can try out my plates here with the feed dogs on. So let me take this off. I'm going to go ahead and screw the feed dogs back on, just like I showed you a couple seconds ago. And then I'll just lightly screw this on so it's going to hold its place. I'm probably not going to put this on right now. I don't think that that's necessary, but it will be important to have this screwed on so I can get that positioning underneath. Just got it screwed on, and I'm turning the hand wheel. I have this set over here all the way down, which is the longest stitch length. And looking, it's actually centered very well. And so I think that's pretty cool. Now, my height of my feed dogs is very low. They're just barely peeking up. So I think I'm going to need to make an adjustment that way. but as far as the side to side position and the front to back position, they're actually really good. I just need to work on the height. So very pleased about that. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off again, and I just have my little Chapman bit without the shaft and everything, because working underneath these little close spaces can be a pain sometimes. So, all right, hold on a sec. Okay, so if I can get these feed dogs off here, and looking, I cannot get to a screw from the top. So let me flip her upside down, see if there's a screw I can access from the bottom. Got her here on my lap where it's soft. And what I want you to see is this screw head right here, okay? As I unscrew it and loosen it, let's see if I can do this. Oh my gosh, so awkward. Okay, there is a little slot right here that opens up as I unscrew that. And that gives more height to this, which is what the feed dogs are screwed onto. So, or they were. Actually, I should put the feed dogs back on. And having this screw underneath, you can make this adjustment while they are in place. So, I just raised it maybe a millimeter or so, maybe slightly more than a millimeter. I'm going to call that good. If when I get everything timed up they're still too low, well, that is the screw right here that I'm going to need to tighten up or loosen. I wanted to show you the spool pin is bent, dirty and bent. So I'm going to take this over where my anvil is and just kind of pound that out so it's a lot straighter. Okay, and then I will polish it. Okay, so welcome to the next morning, rainy morning. I'm going to get started by putting this in here. There is a little groove in this cog that turns here, and this bearing needs to sit in there. So thankfully there's a lot of space here and I can fit it in from the front. And then this big screw is going to go straight in. There's a little threaded hole right there to hold it all together. Okay, so I've got that on. So turning the wheel, you can see that it is going up and down, which is good. If it doesn't, you might have something bound up in there, which, is easy to do, trust me. Okay, also, before I get started on the needle bar and presser bar, I'm going to go ahead and put the lifter lever back on. Okay, so here's the lifter lever. This is what the bolt looks like. It has a big shoulder, smaller shoulder, and then threads down here, okay? So make sure it turns freely there, and I'm going to go ahead and just get this screwed in all the way. Okay, so even with it cinched in all the way, I can still move this freely, so that is good. So now I think that I'm going to be set to go ahead and start putting my bars in. And I'm going to do the lifter presser foot first. So let me get those pieces out. Okay, so this piece here is going to need to be able to slide freely up and down in that slot. So making sure that that's working. And yes, it is. So that's good. I'm just going to hold that there for a second. And get my little presser bar started up here at the top. This machine did not, I believe, have a washer included with it. I'm probably going to go try to snag one out of my parts bin to put on top of that spring there. Yeah, let me go see if I can find an extra. Okay, so here's the deal. I think I've cannibalized the washers from all of my parts machines already. So I am on a quest to find more washers. It's not absolutely critical, but it helps distribute the force of this spring more evenly, but it's not critical. So I need to, I think, clean out these holes a little bit because this is feeling a bit stiff here. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, she is moving now pretty easily, so I'm going to go ahead and drop my screw. I'm going to figure out where I dropped that set screw, but there's a set screw that goes right in there. I'm just going to go ahead and place it. I'll need to adjust it in a minute, but just to put it in there so I don't lose it again. Okay, I wanted to show you, I'm just going to set this plate here. I put a foot on, and I'm just going to bring that all the way down and use that as a starting point to where I'm going to cinch this foot in. So that way I know I'm kind of in the right ballpark at least. Okay, so starting to work on my needle bar. We've got this piece here, and it needs to be placed in so that, well, the screw adjustment screws over on this side, which is difficult, but on the bottom here, this side has a flat surface. That needs to be back against the cog, otherwise it won't fit when you turn it. Ask me how I know. Let me go ahead and throw a little oil in there. Pop it in. It was there just a second ago. Hang on. There it goes. Okay. So now that can move around. And there's not really a hole. I can access this screw really easily. So I think if I just kind of get to it from the side over here, I think that's going to work. And honestly, it's tightened up all the way, which is probably why it was so hard to pop on. For the needle clamp, or the needle bar clamp, I just have this back screw started in there. To me, that is easier, and I'm going to go ahead and push it in like that, and it should rotate easily. So since that screw is started, I can reach through this hole back here. You can see there's a little hole in the back with a screwdriver, and tighten up that screw once I have the needle bar pushed in. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Actually, first I'm going to throw more oil up here and down here and in there. And let's get the needle bar pushed through. And I'm going to move it up and down and turn it all around just until it's moving freely. Okay, so that's pretty good. I have a pool of oil down here that I can wipe up, but sometimes you just need that, you know? So that's good. Let me go ahead and get her needle clamp on. Wait. Hang on a sec, I need to unscrew this little thumb screw thingy out here. Okay, I want to show you, I loosened it up again just because it's easier to get all this stuff on when you can turn it and rotate it. But there's a little screw that goes on top that holds this wire on, which is a thread guide. But now that I have all of that in place, then I can turn it to the correct orientation here and find my little screwdriver and cinch it back in the back there. Okay, so at this angle with this stuff in, I'm going to go ahead and try to work out what is the correct bobbin case and everything. And I had a few of them in a baggie. This one has my name and 115, so I am hoping, and it looks new, that this is the correct one. So that's what I'm going to start with. It does have a bobbin in there, which is empty right now. Well, that doesn't feel secure. What am I missing? Hang on a sec. Okay, so here's the situation. This is the brand new one that was in there. This little scrolly thing is a thread guide. I guess this is what they're selling for new for 115s, but it does not work. And the reason is, if you put it in, it doesn't secure. It's just going to keep spinning around. I went back and looked at my old 115 video, and the style that I was using there, it looked a lot more like this one, which was also in the back. It needs a good clean. And it has the thread guide that looks like this flat piece. So when I open that and put it in, it's not going to spin. It's locked in place. So that's the correct one. This new one had a bobbin inside of it, and that bobbin does seem to fit in this case, which is good. So I'm going to need to take this apart, give it a good clean because it looks like it's had a long life, and then once I get it back together, then we'll put it in, see if we can get this thing timed up. Okay, I want to show you, I've got the bobbin case in there, and I have loosened up the screws down here that were holding the hook onto that shaft and rotate it so that I think the needle is in the proper position to the hook back here when it turns. But I can't test it for sure until I can thread it, and I can't really thread it down here until I can wind a bobbin. Can't wind a bobbin until I assemble the bobbin winder. So I'm going to set that aside for just a minute and get my bobbin winder pieces out here and see if we can get them together with the belt guard up here to see if I can wind a bobbin first. And then if that's successful, then we'll work on this. Okay, so here she is, and I'm going to get started with this, and that is dirty. You know what, give me a second. I'm going to finish cleaning up this underside here. Alrighty, so the other cog is in the back, the smaller heart-shaped one, and this is an eccentric bolt. It's an adjustable bolt, so if you can see, as I turn it, get a smaller screwdriver so you can see. As I turn this, the whole cog is going to go up and down, so you can adjust how you want this to engage with these threads up here, so everything will come together close enough that it's going to spin, but not so close that it's going to bind up. Once this screw here is in its optimal position, and that looks pretty good to me, I'm going to hold that screw in place, flip it over, and I have a nut somewhere. Oh, well, I was polishing my screw. I think I misplaced my nut. Let me find my nut, and that's going to go on the back here. Okay, so I'm just going to hold my nut in place here because when I was putting it on, this got turned. And see, this is a little too tight right there, so I'm going to turn this, back it out just a hair. That's moving a lot more freely. Okay, so I'm going to hold this in place with my thumbnail. And that was horizontal, so I'm holding this in place like this. And tighten up the screw in the back here. I should probably use a screwdriver instead of my thumbnail in the front. But that works pretty good. See how it's spinning? Well, maybe you can't, but trust me, it's spinning nice and freely. You know what? I forgot the washer. I forgot the stinking washer. So, you know, as we do, I'm taking this nut off. You won't watch me put it back on because you can only watch that so many times without going brain dead. There's a spring washer here, and I need to clean it up, obviously. That's going to go over this hole, and it's going to give a little bit of oomph between this piece and the casting. So let me get this cleaned up and put it back together. All right, so with that on, I have a little spring that just popped out. The end of the spring goes in that tiny hole there. Okay, so it's sitting in. I've got a little wire sticking out. This little hole here is going to go over that wire like that. And I'm going to get this shouldered screw started in this hole, just a couple threads in. This thing, I swear it was the death of me. Here's the key. For the ones that you do not see this cam on top, I'm throwing things again, where this part is hidden underneath, if you put this on first, before you put this on, it's going to make your life so much easier, you know? So now all I have to do is push this over and pop that on. Wow, so much easier. Okay, so I had a lot of other footage videoed, and you're not going to see that. I will put a link in the description to one of Bob's videos that has a lot more detail on putting these together. But I can tell you something I messed up and why I was frustrated and didn't video it is this style is different from this style that I did the last time I did a 115, in that this one has a little heart-shaped cog underneath, and usually the last one I did had it on top. And when that little heart-shaped cog is underneath, you need to make sure you put this arm on first before you put this on. So anyhow, as you do, but yeah, I'll link to his video because he's going to give you a lot more step-by-step for all of this kind of stuff. Okay, I have this on. This screw up here is loose right now. I have it positioned so that I'm in the closed position as if I am winding a bobbin. Here, I'll put one on there and pop this on. You know what? Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's the deal. This is a 115. A 115 uses this size bobbin. This is a class 15 bobbin. Okay, so this is positioned so that if you're using a class 15 bobbin, which is much wider, it's gonna, this part should, you know, should want to go in there, and for some reason nothing is working for me today. But if you can see, that little lip's going to go inside that bobbin because this came from a class 15. This is too narrow. It does not fit. So I need to figure something else out. Okay, belt guard is off. I'm sending this to Bob. Bob says that he thinks that he can machine down and make this work with a class 115 bobbin. So this video is going to go out later than normal. It just is what it is at this point, but I think that it's important to get it done so it actually works. So hopefully next time you see me, we're going to have a belt guard and bobbin winder on there. What I'm going to do though is take one of these into my house, because I have a little standalone bobbin winder in there, and get that wound up so at least I can work on all of this, you know, and still have a bobbin that works. So thread, it's going to want to get stuck behind the hook every single time, whether there's a bobbin case in there or not. And ta-da, can you see it? Right back here, this thread, and it gets wound up in there and I can't stop it. It's always jamming in here. This is the old school bobbin, and when I put the old school bobbin in, it clicks in, it stays stationary, but it's jamming in there. This is the new one he had included, but it won't lock in place. And this hook was in pieces. Is there a piece missing in this hook? This is the new bobbin that they say works on a 115, but it won't stay in place.